Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're diving deep into NLP today,
NLP.
Neuro-Linguistic Programming.
Yeah.
And, we got this great YouTube video titled NLP, The New Technology of Achievement Audiobook Part 1.
Right.
And it's got all these different NLP trainers chiming in, so it's going to be a really fun one to unpack.
Yeah, it's really interesting to kind of see how NLP is framed as this way to sort of unlock achievement by understanding how your brain works.
Yeah, and right away, they describe NLP as the software for the brain.
Uh-huh.
So are we like turning our brains into computers?
Well, not literally, of course.
Okay.
But the analogy is meant to sort of highlight that idea that it's about learning these mental programs or patterns
Right.
that help you control your experience.
Gotcha. So less about like changing the hardware of our brains and more about like upgrading the software we're running.
Exactly. And a key concept here is modeling.
Okay.
Which is this idea that you can learn from people who are already successful, so you can study the thinking patterns of high achievers. And you can break those skills down into manageable steps.
Oh, interesting.
And it's about making those skills accessible to everyone.
Like that saying, success leaves clues.
Right.
So NLP is all about taking those clues
Exactly.
and turning it into a system.
Yeah, they actually compare it to skiing.
Oh, wow.
Which used to be seen as this elite activity, only for people with natural talent.
Yeah.
But then people started to analyze what expert skiers actually did.
Interesting.
And they broke it down into techniques. And suddenly, way more people could hit the slopes.
Yeah, that's a really great image.
And so NLP is aiming to do that for
Yeah.
all sorts of human experiences.
What could we all achieve if we had the right mental programs?
Exactly. And, the video dives into the history of NLP a little bit, tracing its roots back to the 1970s
Good.
with the creators Richard Bandler and John Grinder. They were fascinated by the work of top therapists,
Oh, wow.
like Fritz Perls, Virginia Satter, and Milton Erickson.
Oh, so they were like, let's figure out what these therapy rock stars are doing.
All right.
And turn it into a system anyone can use.
Exactly. They wanted to kind of demystify the magic of what these therapists were doing and sort of decode the mental processes that they were using to create these powerful transformations.
That's really cool. And their work caught the attention of Time magazine back in 1983. The video mentioned an article that called NLP, a potential game changer for self-improvement.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to see how those ideas have evolved over the years.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get into the actual like nuts and bolts of it.
Sure.
What are the principles of NLP?
So they lay out 5 fundamental principles that form kind of the bedrock of NLP.
Okay.
And the first one is a real mind bender.
Oh, okay.
It sets the stage for everything else. The map is not the territory.
That sounds very philosophical.
It's actually pretty simple.
Oh.
We all experience the world through our own unique filters.
Yeah, our beliefs,
Right.
past experiences.
Our interpretations, all of that shapes how we see things.
That's our map of reality.
Exactly. That's our map of reality.
But like our maps can be flawed, right? Like I might think that my coworker is upset with me because they didn't say hi to me this morning. But maybe they're just having a bad day or they're preoccupied.
Exactly.
So my map, the story I'm telling myself, might not reflect the actual territory.
Right. And NLP is all about becoming aware of those moments when our maps might be leading us astray
Okay.
and learning how to redraw them
Yeah.
to create a more empowering experience for ourselves.
So recognizing that our perceptions aren't always reality and that we have the power to shift those perceptions.
Exactly.
I like it. What's the next one?
Principle number 2 is experience has structure.
Okay.
And this one delves into how our memories are coded in our brains.
Interesting.
It's not just this random jumble of images and feelings,
Right.
There's an actual underlying structure to it.
So you can actually change the structure of a memory.
That's what they're suggesting.
Wow.
Like, you can make a bad memory less painful just by changing how you think about it.
Wow. Okay.
And they give an example in the video
Okay.
where they have you think of an experience from your past that was a bit disappointing.
Uh-huh.
And then they ask you to imagine listening to fun, upbeat music while you're replaying that memory in your head.
So I'm reliving like that awkward first date,
Yes.
and I should mentally add a circus soundtrack.
Exactly. Because the idea is that by changing the associated sounds and feelings,
Yeah.
you can shift your perception of the memory itself. It might not erase the event, but it can lessen the negative impact it has on you.
So we have more control over our emotional responses than we realize.
Exactly.
We can reframe those past experiences.
Yes. And that leads perfectly into the next principle, which is very empowering,
Okay.
which is if one person can do it, anyone can learn it.
I like that one already.
It's about things like motivation,
Hmm.
persuasion, confidence. Those aren't just innate talents you're born with.
Right.
Those are skills that you can learn and develop.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, what's next?
Principle number 4 focuses on the mind-body connection. Mind and body are one system.
Yeah.
We often think of them as separate, but NLP really emphasizes how interconnected they are.
Right. I feel like we all kind of know that, though, right?
Yeah.
Like when you're feeling stressed, your shoulders tense up, or when you're excited, you just have more energy.
Exactly. And the video even has you do this little exercise to demonstrate this,
Okay.
where they have you slump down in your chair, let out this big sigh,
Okay.
and just notice how that makes you feel.
Right.
Then they have you sit up straight, take a deep breath, and say yes out loud.
Okay.
It's amazing how you can really feel a shift in your state just from doing those physical adjustments.
Posture can impact our mental state so much.
Right.
So what other, like, mind-body codes can we crack?
That's the question NLP seeks to answer.
I like it.
Yeah.
All right, so we have 2 down, 3 to go.
And the fifth and final principle is people have all the resources they need.
So, like money,
Not quite.
connections.
No, in NLP, when they say resources,
Ah,
they're referring to the internal tools that we all have within us.
Gotcha.
Our imagination,
okay.
our senses, our memories, our feelings.
Interesting.
It's about recognizing that we already possess the building blocks for change and achievement within ourselves.
So tapping into our own inner potential rather than relying on external factors.
Exactly. It's about learning how to access and utilize those inner resources effectively to achieve our goals.
All right, so we got the 5 principles.
Yes.
The map is not... The territory experience has structure. If one person can do it, anyone can. Mind and body are one, and we have all the resources we need.
Right.
Okay, that's a lot, but I'm starting to get a sense of how NLP approaches personal growth.
Yeah, and now the video kind of takes those principles and starts to connect them to motivation,
Okay,
which is one of the most fundamental aspects of human behavior.
yeah, for sure.
And they offer this really interesting perspective on how our brains are wired for motivation, and how we can use that knowledge to achieve our goals.
All right, let's unlock the secrets of motivation.
Let's do it.
So let's talk motivation.
Okay.
The video talks about this idea of toward and away from motivation.
Yeah, it's like these two different directions our brains can kind of steer us in.
Right. Okay.
So imagine you're offered a promotion at work.
Okay.
If you're toward motivated, you're going to be excited about the new challenges, the potential for growth, maybe even that corner office you've had your eye on.
Right. You're drawn to the positive outcome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then away from motivation.
Does that mean you're just running away from things you don't want?
Well, not necessarily.
Okay.
It's less about fear, I think, and more about avoiding negative consequences.
Okay.
So in that same scenario,
Mm-hmm.
the person who's away from motivated might be focused on avoiding feeling stagnant
Right.
or being passed over for opportunities.
Right.
It's still a powerful driver. It's just coming from a different angle.
So less about seeking out the good and more about avoiding the bad.
Yeah, and the video actually busts a myth here.
Okay.
Away from motivation often gets a bad rap,
Uh-huh.
but they make the argument that it can be just as effective
Okay.
as toward motivation.
Interesting.
They actually use the example of Martin Zweig.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
a famous stock investor
Hmm.
known for his away from approach.
Like minimizing losses, right?
Exactly. He's all about not chasing the big wins, but making sure he doesn't lose big either.
Right. And it's clearly working for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Zweig's success shows that there's no one right way to be motivated.
All right.
It's all about understanding your own tendencies and using them to your advantage.
So how do you figure out what your motivation style is?
Right.
And like work with it?
Well, for the away from folks out there, the key is to kind of be aware of the cyclical nature of this motivation style,
Okay.
because you're driven by avoiding discomfort, right? Your motivation can actually dip
Oh.
once you've moved far enough away
Yeah.
from whatever you're trying to avoid.
It's like that classic scenario of finally cleaning your room when it reaches a level of chaos.
Exactly.
That's just unbearable.
Exactly.
And then once it's somewhat tidy, the urgency fades.
Right, and the cycle begins anew.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
So what's the solution?
So the trick is to keep the consequences of inaction front and center in your mind.
Okay.
Maybe create a visual reminder or set deadlines.
Right.
Just something to create that sense of urgency.
Okay. Good tips. What about for the toward folks?
Yeah, so for toward motivation,
Yeah.
one thing to be mindful of is that excitement for a goal can sometimes overshadow practical considerations.
Yeah.
So it's important to balance that enthusiasm
Right.
with actual planning and problem solving.
So don't get so caught up in chasing the shiny object
Right.
that you trip over the hurdles along the way.
Exactly. And here's where it gets even more interesting.
Wow.
The video connects motivation to our values.
Yeah.
Like what truly drives us
Mm-hmm.
at a deep level are the things we hold most dear.
So find your why, and you'll find your how.
Exactly. And they share this really poignant story about a hospital orderly
Oh,
who was struck by how many older patients expressed regrets.
really?
And not about things they did, but about things they didn't do.
Wow.
Like they wish they'd pursued their passions, spent more time with loved ones, just truly lived in alignment with their values.
It's a good reminder
Yeah.
to make sure you're living a meaningful life.
Exactly. And NLP actually offers some tools
Okay.
for doing just that.
Okay.
One of the concepts they introduce is submodalities.
Submodalities.
Yeah.
What is that?
So it has to do with how we visualize things.
Okay.
So submodalities refer to the specific qualities of our mental images.
Okay.
So for example, when you visualize something that you really desire, that image in your mind might be big, bright, colorful, and close up. Whereas something that you're not drawn to might be this small, dull, blurry image way off in the distance.
Right. Okay. I can see how that would make a difference.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the fascinating thing is we can actually consciously change these submodalities
Oh, really?
to shift our emotional responses.
So if I'm craving something unhealthy,
Yeah.
I could change how I visualize it.
Yes.
Maybe make it look dull and unappetizing.
Exactly.
And actually reduce the craving.
That's the idea. They actually give an example of a woman
Okay.
who used this technique to manage her food cravings.
Oh, wow.
She visualized the foods she wanted to avoid as less appealing,
Uh-huh.
like black and white, flat far away.
Wow.
And she made the healthier foods more vivid and attractive in her mind.
And it worked.
And it worked.
That's incredible. So you can rewire your brain's reward system
Right.
just by changing how you picture things.
Exactly.
Wow. I'm starting to see how NLP takes these kind of abstract concepts about mindset
Yeah.
and turns them into techniques you can actually use.
Exactly. And the video walks you through a couple of these techniques.
Okay.
One of them is called the Circle of Excellence,
Okay.
which is all about anchoring positive feelings to a physical space.
Oh, that sounds interesting. How does that work?
So imagine you have this big presentation coming up
Mm-hmm.
and you're feeling nervous about it.
Okay.
With the Circle of Excellence, you literally imagine a circle on the floor in front of you,
Okay.
and you think back to a time when you felt incredibly confident and successful.
Uh-huh.
And you step into that circle
Okay.
and allow yourself to fully experience those feelings.
So you're associating those positive feelings with that physical space.
Exactly, like creating a mental anchor.
Right.
And then you step out of the circle, leaving those feelings behind.
Okay.
But later, when you're about to give your presentation,
Yeah.
you visualize that circle again,
You step back in.
and you step back into it, bringing those feelings of confidence with you.
It's like a mental dress rehearsal for success.
Exactly.
And this could be used for so many things, not just presentations.
Absolutely. And it highlights the power of visualization.
Right.
How we can use our imagination to shape our reality.
I like that. The video also mentions a technique called the new behavior generator.
Yes.
And this one is about mentally rehearsing new behaviors you want to adopt.
It involves creating this mental double of yourself.
Okay.
Almost like watching a movie and
Ooh.
seeing that other you successfully performing the new behavior.
So if I'm trying to get myself to go to the gym more often,
Uh-huh.
I would visualize my mental double, like hitting the weights,
Yeah.
feeling energized,
Oh.
loving the workout.
Precisely. It's about creating this mental blueprint for success.
Right.
Programming your brain to see that new behavior as something that's already within your reach.
So much of NLP comes down to leveraging the power of our minds,
Mm-hmm.
like our imagination, our senses,
Yeah.
our internal resources,
Yes.
to create the experiences that we want.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we have far more control over our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors than we often realize.
We just need to learn the code
We just need to learn the
to
code.
reprogram our own minds.
To reprogram our minds.
I feel like my brain is buzzing with all these new ideas.
Me too.
So should we wrap things up
Yeah.
and give the listeners some key takeaways?
Let's do it. Let's bring it all together.
All right, so we've gone deep into NLP.
Yeah, it's been a journey.
We talk about the history, the principles, even some specific techniques for rewiring our brains.
Yeah.
feel like we've just scratched the surface, but
Yeah, so much to explore.
it's been really inspiring.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's kind of distill it down.
Okay.
What are the key takeaways you want our listeners to walk away with from this deep dive?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is just recognizing that you're not just this passive recipient of experience.
Yeah.
You're actively creating your reality through your thoughts, your beliefs, your perceptions.
Right.
Like we're all running this internal software, and NLP gives us the tools to become these expert programmers.
Yeah, I like that. It's so powerful. And that goes back to that first principle.
Right.
The map is not the territory.
Exactly.
Our maps can be flawed,
Right.
but we can redraw them.
And create a more empowering experience for ourselves.
Yeah. And remember those submodalities.
Yes.
Just changing like the qualities of our mental images.
Yeah, making them brighter, closer, more vibrant.
Can actually shift our emotional responses.
Right, you're basically rewiring your brain's responses to things.
Yeah, it's amazing. If you're struggling with like a craving or a fear or even like lack of confidence, you might be able to just reprogram your experience by changing how you're seeing it.
Exactly. And then there's also that whole concept of, different motivation styles.
Right toward versus away from.
Exactly. And NLP encourages us to really explore what drives us,
Yeah.
Are we motivated by pursuing those rewards or avoiding pain?
Right.
And there's no judgment there.
Right. It's not good or bad.
Right. They both can be incredibly powerful.
Yeah, we saw that with Martin Zweig
Exactly.
and his risk-averse investing style.
Exactly. So the key is just understanding your own tendencies and working with them.
Yeah, not against them.
Exactly.
It's all about figuring out what works for you.
Right.
What gets you fired up.
And what gets you moving in the direction you want to go.
Right. And I love how NLP emphasizes that it's all learnable. These aren't just innate talents.
Right.
They're skills.
You can develop them.
Techniques you can practice.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive on NLP,
Yeah.
I'm left with like one final thought-provoking question for our listener.
Okay.
What if you could truly master the code of your own brain? What seemingly impossible skill or achievement could you unlock?
That's a great question.
What amazing things could you create in your life?
So much potential.
That's all for this deep dive on NLP. Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.